Hi, welcome to Talk About. My name is John Twigg, and our guest today is Steve Watson, the communications manager for the Central North Island for BC Hydro. I'm not sure manager is the right title, but you've been doing this a while.
Yes, I have, about 25 years now. So.
I asked him that sort of just to make chatting. I said, how long have you been with Hydro? And he said, 25 years. I said, oh, that means you're eligible for long-term service.
Yeah.
What does that get you?
Well, 25 years, I mean, it's just an achievement. It's a milestone within the company, which is great. I really enjoy working for BC Hydro, and it'd be nice to keep going and retire at about 55.
Well, you look like a young man.
Yeah, well, 25 years with Hydro, and I turned 50 this year, too, so it's a pretty big year.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Has it all been on the island?
Well, I was raised in Qualicum Beach. Born in Imo, raised in Qualicum Beach, and then I was in Vancouver for 10 years in the 90s, and then back here ever since. Live in a New Spey and come up to Cam River a couple times a week. So.
I don't think you do with Victoria, though. You're kind of...
No, I used to, Ted Olenek and I used to split the island in terms of community relations and that kind of thing, but well, a number of years ago, about 5 years ago, it switched. I kind of more focused on capital projects and generation operations in basically Comox Valley, Cam River area now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very complex area, and you know, I've been in the media a while. I've seen a lot of communications people come and go, but you know your file so well. It's amazing.
Well, I try, but really it's kudos to the staff and the people I work with, and when you work with these people week to week and month to month and year to year, you get to know whether it's biologists or engineers and that kind of thing. So you pick up a few tidbits here and there. So it's a good team that I work with. Well,
good for you. We're going to cover a number of topics. We'll get to the John Hart Generating Station Renewal Project. See how well I say? Well, it just flows off here. But I want to get first to the news, and that's the water supply. So how's the snowpack looking?
Well, it's this year, BC Hydro has a water supply forecast that goes from February to September, and that considers snowpack and rainfall, and also historical records that we have, and just generally how much water we come in. So right now we're looking at about 113% of normal, which is a good number, but there's a bit of a tail within that. February and March were quite wet, and we had a number of storms. In fact, we spilled some water below the John Hart Dam for flood risk management.
Yes, that was quite something.
And then we've had a very warm April, and so the snowpack is melted. Basically, it's melting, and the rate is about a month earlier than normal. So we've had about 170% of normal water inflows in the Cam River system the last 3 months. So all that snowpack is melting, and so really looking ahead, we're only looking at about 84% of normal inflows from May to September. So it's drying out. We didn't have a lot of precipitation in April, so we'll see what happens this summer. Normally we don't get a lot, but the good news is Upper Campbell Reservoir is full, about a lake. It's basically about 3.5 meters above normal for this time of year, so we'll be able to manage through this summer.
Excellent. Now, one of the tricky things you've had to do, and this is like only a few years old, but managing for fish habitat. And there's a story in the Mirror of April the 13th. Water flow increased to protect fish habitat. Without repeating the old news, but managing the water for the changing weather plus the construction project, that must be a challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun right now within BC Hydro. So yeah, we have a water use plan and water license and how we operate the Cam River system for reservoir levels and river flows for certain times of the year, and that adjusts for obvious reasons. And then at the same time, we have the John Hart project, which is replacing the existing John Hart facilities, the downstream, the generating station, et cetera. And that work is sensitive. We're doing work right beside the generating station. So we're working very closely within Power BC on the controlled drilling and blasting, because they're putting where the tunnel where the water's going to come out from the underground and re-enter the Cam River is right beside the existing station. So there's very close coordination to make sure those units keep running.
Well, I was just going to jump in. I read the news releases, almost all of them, and you have to turn off some of the generating stations, the older ones, I guess, when the blasting is happening, because you wouldn't want to shake something. And then, therefore, the water has to keep going over the dam.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been quite a number of blasts within the tail race. Basically, it's a rock removal process about 20 meters of vertical rock downward.
Wow.
And then there's the opening for the tunnel, and then the water comes out below the surface level when it's finished. And so there's been a number of blasts. It started on October 1st. And what happens is as we go down a level, it's a kind of called a sinking hole blast, where the rock doesn't have a lot of place to go.
Right.
But as you go through a certain level, the rock has a place to go in an open area. So there's more potential for vibration. So as a precaution, we have twice already released water down Elk Falls in case that vibration is such that we have multiple units go offline, because that interrupts the flow downstream. So by having the water covered off by coming down the canyon, the fish habitat's fully covered. So both those blasts went off without incident, but it just goes to show that we're mindful of what we're doing, and we're trying to protect downstream fish habitat the best we can.
Now, we may get back to that, but taking a couple of generating units offline, that's not a problem, I guess, at this time of year because of the tie line.
Yeah, well, right now we haven't. There's 6 units, 6 turbines and generators, and we called Unit 6 is the closest to where this blasting is, and that's the one that's, if anything's been a little susceptible to this. But that's not because of the blast; it's because of the age and really how fragile these units are. And,
how old are they?
Well, the first 2 units were put in 1947. Next 2 in 49, and the other 2 I think were 53. So
and they're still running.
And they're still running. 68 years, and we need a few more years to go, John. But so actually we're not. In some cases we have lowered them, but by and large all 6 units. But it depends on how much water we've got. But by and large we've been running all 6 units. And just lowering them down a little bit, it's so far it's working.
Well, you got lots of water right now, so why not run them?
Yes, absolutely. That's right.
Yeah. Now, the fish habitat story, though, is there going to be an issue, or is it looking good because we're at 113% of normal snowpack?
Yeah, well, last year was the driest year on record, I believe. Basically, there was no, and during the summertime, there was little, if any, snow melt. Just no snowpack and very dry. And so this year, so that was just maintaining water flows over that fish habitat through the fish out migration, the fried and smolts and out migrating.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 periods for 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, it depends on the types of fish, but it can last an extended period of time where they're susceptible, and so that's okay for this year, and now we're going through the summertime, so the next kind of horizon is the fish spawning. So that migration and spawning come this fall. So the pink salmon, they arrive in August, September, and of course the Chinook a little bit after. And so, but right now there's a lot of water abundance, and we're just keeping an eye. Just as I say, it looks like it could be dry this summer, and making sure we keep ahead of that.
Yeah, there's so many places I could go to. I want to get to the suspension bridge and the Elk Falls, but we almost had a flood in Campbellton. I guess
December
it was last
2014.
year. Yeah. There's no threat of that right now, I guess.
No, the risk for flooding in Campbellton, Cam River is really from the November to January timeframe.
Yeah.
That's when we get the subtropical storms with the warm temperatures causing snowmelt for the snow that's on the mountains, and then heavy rainfall. So that I think it was December 10th, that week of 2014, that was one of the biggest events we've had.
Yeah.
And thankfully the reservoir was down a little bit, and we were able to spill some water advance during and after, but it was very close. There was 400 cubic meters per second going over Elk Falls, speaking of that, then, and the year-round base flow is only 4 cubic meters per second, so it gives you an idea of how much water was coming through. So that was a big event. So we'll see how it goes. Every year is different, and so far we've able to prevent flooding. The best we can do is certainly to mitigate it or lessen it, but hopefully we don't get that perfect storm where it does cause flooding.
Will the new dam and I guess the new generating station doesn't change the water level volumes as much, but is it going to be more able to manage the water flow?
Well, when the facilities were built in the 1940s and 1950s, Ladore and after John Hart, Ladore and Strathcona was built in the late 1950s. That it was pretty well designed. When we looked at the John Hart generating station replacement project, we looked at water flow and understanding we'd have to change the water license, which we weren't prepared to do. That we'd only spill water; it would only be a few $1 million. When we spill water, a very limited amount of time. And so that water is really well allocated for those 3 generating stations. So within this new facility, using the same amount of water, we get 9.5% more power because it's more efficient equipment than the 1940s.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. But this project's strictly environmental, public safety, reliability type project. Yeah. It's not about getting new power.
So the lake level is not going to change?
No. John Hart Reservoir will have more flexibility because the penstocks are near the surface of the reservoir.
Okay.
And so with this project, the water intake is moved over by the concrete spillway dam is much deeper in the reservoir. So that'll allow us to, actually following this project, we have the proposed dam safety upgrade to the John Hart Dam itself for seismic reasons. So
yes.
That's hundreds of millions of dollars and create hundreds of jobs, and that could start as early as summer 2019 when this project's finished. But that allows us to draw down the reservoir to upgrade the dam. So there is some sequencing there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, there's some kind of a coffer dam, you call it? What's happening there?
Yeah, so there's that was one of the highest risks when we undertook this project, and in Power BC, which is SNC-Lavalin, and ACON, which is civil design, and Frontier Kemper, which is an expert in tunneling, and those guys, they're doing a really good job. And one of the things is, rather than lowering the reservoir, you attach piles, steel piles. I think there's about 56 of them all in a row, and they're attached together on the upstream side of the dam, attached to the dam. Yeah. And then that was completed. We also attached silt curtains, 2 of them, hanging from a boardwalk, and that protected the water quality in the reservoir itself. So the coffer dam has been finished. It's temporary, and so now they're working their way down in front of the dam. It goes down about 20 meters of vertical rock. Then go under the dam and then into the power intake shaft, and then down to the generating station. So that work is they did a really good job in terms of that process.
Now the tunneling, there's been video and there's photos, and is it on the website too? Do you have a website?
Yeah, we have the website. It's on. Yeah, there's a number of websites. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But are you tunneling from both ends?
No, I mean right now all the rock excavation is coming from 2 we call underground portals, and they're just upstream of the generating station. And I think everyone knows those 3 iconic tall surge towers is just upstream of that. And there's 2 tunnels that go underground. One's I think it's about 6 meters by 6 meters. Another one's 6 meters by 9 meters. And so those are the methods to getting underground. And there's, I mean, as of a month or so ago, there's well over 1.5 kilometers of tunneling had been done. Yeah. And so that's how they're moving all the rock. So right now, they're actually working the generating station, the new powerhouse cavern, maybe we can talk about that later, but that's basically going to be finished. And so for right now, they're focusing on the power tunnel, which is basically the tunnel that connects to the reservoir. So water goes in from the reservoir, goes down about 100 meters, then about a 1% grade for about 1.5 kilometers. So they're going from the generating station upwards.
How are you keeping the water out of that?
Well, there's the coffer dam.
Okay.
The coffer dam serves that purpose, so we're all good there. So they're going down right now at the dam itself. They're working downward on this power tunnel shaft. And it's about 90 meters total down, and then this is where the horizontal part of the tunnel coming up from the powerhouse will meet. And so it's that power tunnel is about 8.5 meters in diameter. It's pretty big.
Now, I did hear that, I guess it was one of your releases or maybe a mirror story, but there was some kind of a problem with the tunneling. Like they encountered some ground. As a matter of fact, I think you might have mentioned it last time you were on Talk About. But what's the status of that now?
Yeah, well, that was last year. I think it was May of last year. We were drilling in the main access tunnel, and all of a sudden we completed a blast, and some water came in, and some cobbles and sand, kind of like what you'd see in a river. And it was like, what's this doing here? And so they worked their way through this process, and they started actually to work their way through this what we call loose rock zone. Basically, it's ancient kind of glacial fill that we had no idea was supposed to be there. Yeah. There's a number of drilling and work in advance of the project done by SNC-Lavalin and Hydro, but you can't do everything. And in this particular spot. So they came across it, trying to go through it, but it's very slow. Yeah. But they, at the same time as they were doing other components underground work and advancing, they did probe holes, and they found a way around it.
What, did they curve around?
Yeah, so now it goes in and it curves around, and I think this week we're just literally just past it. And we'll resume the full blasting, so we're pretty excited about that.
I think that's news.
Yeah, sounds
so
good
you're curving around the
yeah, we're curving around, and I think we're just past it. So It was no, it's a good example of, you know, it's a mining operation. You come across some things you don't really expect, and that's why we've hired SNC Lab and their team as a contractor, because they deal with these things around the world, and so far it's looking promising.
How's the contract going in terms of cost and schedule and stuff like that?
Good. Well, I mean, as we just talked about, that was not something that we were SNC Lab was counting on, but to their credit, they're completely realigning and reconfiguring how they're doing the project. And so they're still working to have it completed for fall of 2018. So that's still on track.
Wow.
You know, there's certain things they're trying to catch up, but by and large, that's still the target. So, I think it's going well.
Yeah. So the water supply is good. The dam construction project is good.
Yeah, there's 285 people working there right now.
Wow.
In Cam River.
And recently, I guess, we're not sure where we were communicating, but I think you sent me an email. It's a 20-year project.
Well, BC Hydro has, it's a 20-year plus project, and so we have the John Hart Generating Station Replacement Project, which is 5 years.
Yeah.
And then following that, we have the John Hart Dam Safety Upgrade Project. That's probably 3-4 years, starting 2019. And then we have the Strathcona Dam, which is also a seismic upgrade. The first component of that project is to put in a low-level outlet, which is kind of similar to the type of tunnels we're building for the John Hart project. So right now, unlike John Hart, we have 3 spillway gates fairly low in the reservoir that can release water. And so if we get a seismic event, for example, we can lower that reservoir quite quickly.
Yeah.
Strathcona Dam, we don't really have that. There's 3 spillway gates, but they're quite high up. And so this project is putting an underground tunnel around the left to right bank side of the dam deep in the reservoir so we can draw it down. But then following that, there's an upgrade to the dam itself. We'll eventually replace the generating station up there. And so that's a 20-year plus project. And of course, there's a lot of regulatory approvals and funding approvals, but it's a major capital projects in this community for 20 plus years.
I don't want to be cheeky, but it occurred to me you'll be retired before this project is finished.
Yes, I will.
Wow.
Well, this project I'll still be here, but those other projects, yes, I'll be.
Wow.
Hopefully golfing and doing things like that.
You'll be walking over the suspension bridge. That is an amazing thing. How do you see it now? And I'm talking because you've got that information booth there, the cabin, and I don't know if you do a crowd count, but give us a sense of how the suspension bridge is. It's kind of about a year after
it's absolutely, it was a year. It opened a year ago, May 9th.
Yeah.
And so it's been fantastic. In my time, I've never been involved with a project that's seen such a good win in terms of hydro and the community and BC Parks and the Rotary Club led it, obviously. Yeah. And Laurie Buse and I were here talking about that a year or two ago. But it's the Interpret Center we have at John Hart. The Interpret Center talks about the history and how it's operated and what it'll look like in the future and touchscreens, stuff like that. We do keep track, and we've had 19,000 people through that facility in the last 12 months.
But there would be probably maybe 10 times that across the bridge.
I think that's probably the case.
Yeah.
So it's I think we figure about 15% of people actually go in there.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of people. It's free. The parking's free. The going over the bridge is free. The falls are spectacular, and every now and again I try to promote an opportunity to see it, whether we're spilling water for flood risk management or maintenance or those kinds of things, and it literally can get a few thousand people going up there.
Well, I think, was it February or something, you had this huge spill, January, February?
Yeah, we had some in February and March.
It was pouring rain, and it was cold and windy, but there were something like, I don't know, was it 1,000 people that went out that day?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, I'm not there each time, but I know when we had one day where we had to remove some grassy debris, sheathing that has come loose in the reservoir and come against the intake gate. So we had to lower the generation and spill water so we could get our crews in to clean it out. So we kind of advertised that, and I happened to be there, and it was unbelievable. It was a couple of thousand people there, and as you mentioned, it actually turned wet just after lunch, and people still went.
Yeah.
So
I was one of them. It was amazing. Anything you want to toss in? Because I've got some more generic things that no problem filling there.
Well, I mean, I think another key point is the Cam River substation.
Oh, yes.
We have, there's basically 2 substations in Cam River. I know we always talk about the generation and the dams, but there's also the power lines and that side of the business to keep things going. So we looked at, Cam River has been growing to no one's surprise, and so we looked at upgrading the Cam River substation. And so that's about a $29.3 million project. We just started in March, April. And so we're adding a 3rd transformer and 4 additional circuits or feeder positions. So that's going to be completed by fall of next year. And so that'll set Cam River out well the next number of months. And the Cam River substation serves not just Cam River, it's Quadra Island, Sayward, out towards different areas. So it's an important substation. At the same time, mind you, while we're talking about seismic, we also did some work where, particularly the north side, it's a fairly steep slope. And it was built, I think, in the 1960s. And we found that following a significant earthquake, that slope could let go or slump, basically through liquefaction. And so we're spending some money actually to put some berms in and shore that up, so that doesn't happen. Because obviously, when following an earthquake, and we know we're going to get one, because we live in a seismic zone, not in our timeline.
No, but we had a couple of big earthquakes a few weeks ago. Not us here, but in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's
hundreds of people killed, and for a few days there, like I think I'm a little psychic, and I feel that there's not going to be an earthquake, but
there will be.
Yeah, but a big one, big enough to break the dam? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, that's why we have this 20-year plus capital plan, because we're concerned how the John Hart Dam and Strathcona Dam will perform.
Yeah, because they were built in old days with old standards.
Standards, seismic,
is it
guidelines.
A fill dam?
It's earth fill, yeah. And then we have the Lador Dam, which is concrete, founded on bedrock. That one's better. But that one's seismically better. When you're on rock, rock is seismically quite strong. When you're on fill, it can move around. So we're actually quite concerned how they would perform in a major earthquake, and that's why we're spending a bunch of money and effort to upgrade them, and that's that 20-year plus horizon.
What is the big ticket price overall? 2.5 billion or something?
Well, we don't have the final cost. I mean, the John Hart Generating Station replacement project's about 1.1 billion.
Yeah.
The John Hart Dam we're still in preliminary design. So basically, engineering and we have other people, consultants and third parties helping with us to determine the best option to shore up that facility. So once we have that, then we'll have a better idea of cost, but it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then Strathcona Dam is larger because it's the low-level outlet, it's the dam, and eventually the powerhouse. But we haven't gone to that, but it's obviously it's in the billions of dollars and
so
a big investment.
One of the key things to take from all of this is that for decades there are going to be hundreds of people working on this project.
There is, and I'm quite pleased with the partnership we have with School District 72, where Hydro, we pay for the buses, and so teachers and students can come out to the Interpret Center. We've had the last Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think we've had a class there every time, and so they're able to see the history, and that there's impacts with power generation, whether it's wind turbines or hydroelectric, there's impacts, and how we try to mitigate those. But one of the clear messages is the career side of it.
Yeah.
And no matter what your interests are, whether it's surveying, first aid, an engineer, biologist, environmental monitoring, project management, you name it, that's here, and it's going to be here for some time, and you can watch these projects grow and get involved. So it's a big part of it.
Okay, changing horses a bit. The state of Campbell River's water system, a fellow just got an award for making some proactive moves to avoid having to spend renewals. What's your perspective of Campbell River's water system, which gets its water from hydro? And also, I think there's negotiations to renew the license. What's the status of those?
Well, I think what used to be the village of Campbell River, now it's a city when the project was first started. So the community here has really benefited from the BC Hydro facilities. It's basically a free gravity-fed system they've used for many, many decades.
Furthermore, it's beautiful, pure, pristine water.
Yes, and we had I used to have a bit of a joke that it was the few seconds that cured inside the wooden penstocks that was made the difference. But it's not that. So that's been good, and Campbell River's had very low-cost water in terms of infrastructure because of that. And because people know The other side of it is we have 3 reservoirs.
Yeah, what's the,
And so you can have,
thimble
you have
bathtub and
it's
swimming
almost-
pool?
Yeah, we have Upper Campbell Reservoir as the bathtub,
Yeah.
Lower Campbell McCarver Lake is a bucket, and John Hart Reservoir is a teacup
Yeah.
for volumes. And so indirectly that provides filtration, right? Because 80% of the water flow comes into the Upper Campbell Reservoir by the lake, and so it settles.
Yeah.
So things like turbidity or cloudiness, you don't
Yeah.
get that really.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good system, and of course, as people know, we have a memorandum of understanding with the City Campbell River. They're building their new detached water intake down Highway 28 and up into the John Hart Reservoir. So
And
that's
their
one
water
thing.
intake is over budget.
Yeah, I saw. We have a monthly coordination meeting with the city
Okay.
on the John Hart project and their project because there's some similarities.
Yeah.
And we want to be on the same page, and so they're working hard to get through that. Some early parts of the project were under budget. This part, which is the most complex in terms of the work to
Yeah.
get into the reservoir, but
Okay,
yeah, hopefully
is
we'll
the
manage that.
city's license renegotiated yet, or is it in progress?
Well, BC Hydro is a senior water license holder.
Yes.
And then we provide, through a water use agreement, water to the city, because otherwise that water goes to the power turbines.
Yeah.
And so the city, like any other municipality,
Yeah.
and the province compensates BC Hydro. So we have that agreement.
Okay, it's in place?
It's been in place for many decades, and we renew it
Okay.
every year.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't get to ask him about smart meters. But anyway,
Disappointing.
yeah, I know. Okay, we got to wrap, but Steve, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you, Laura and Gord and Chaz. And thank you, Brian Shaw, for sponsoring Talk About here on Shaw TV North Island. We have a YouTube channel. You can watch this again.